All right, I assume we're live. So, hi everybody, thank you for joining us. This is a webinar by Law Insider. My name is Richard Tromans. I'm the founder of Artificial Lawyer, and what we're discussing today is CLM is dead, or is it? To be discussed. With us are Electra and Preston, and I'll let them introduce themselves first. Electra, would you like to go ahead and tell us a bit about
Sure.
yourself?
I'm Electra. I'm the Chief Legal Officer here at Law Insider. And I've been with the business for almost a year now, which is incredible.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so I'm you're really excited to be here. And Richard, we've known each other for years, so it's great to have you facilitating this today.
Thank you, thank you. And Preston.
Richard, my name is Preston Clark. I am the president and co-founder of Law Insider, and I am the CEO of Simple Docs.
Alrighty, okay, let's get into this. Let's get right into this. So, if we're gonna be provocative and say that CLM is dead, let's define our terms like good lawyers, right? Yeah, let's do some definitions. What is CLM, at least in 2025? Because I think there's been a lot of evolution and there's a lot of different companies out there that do contract management, contract analysis, all kinds of things. Who wants to have a first bash at that? What is CLM? What do we mean? Aside from contract lifecycle management, broadly, what is a
Yeah,
CLM? When you see
yeah,
one crossing the street, what does it look like?
I can go first.
Mm,
Um, I think that's always been a question that has been debated because no one fully knew what CLM was, nor did technology providers set out to deliver CLM with a truly defined understanding of what that meant. I think that technology providers set out to solve a problem, which was the fact that lawyers wanted to manage their contracts almost at a post-execution phase a bit more efficiently. So they were buying repositories. CLM began as a document management system that then evolved into something that was a bit more sophisticated and layered. And the providers were responding to what the customers were asking for. And then if you look at the CLM market, there are different features that exist for each CLM product. So I think it's never been truly clearly defined. But the consistent theme is the fact that there is a problem in the way that people manage their contracts, and CLM seeks to solve that
mm.
one way or another.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I suppose back in the day, it was just a box full of contracts, wasn't it? And literally a physical box. And
Yeah.
then they got sort of, PDF'd or OCR'd or whatever, and then they got sent off to some place where literally hundreds of people went through all the documents and then digitized them or whatever, or organized them in whatever way. And then as each layer of technology came, they kind of grew more and more sophisticated until, I mean, some CLMs today do so much. It's incredible. So many different things. But Preston, how would you define it?
Yeah, so we think about the primary categories, and I think you both touched on them, but I have this wheel that I use to describe it. And so you have self-serve and workflow automation, getting contracts out faster, getting contracts signed faster, which is some workflow, some integration, e-sign, Slack, Teams. It's alerts, it's notifications, it's making sure your CFO doesn't get pissed because the auto renew occurred without anyone being notified about it. It's being able to search the database. It's the box that you mentioned, Richard.
Mhm.
And then I think, as we'll talk about today, it's the AI magic that now sits beneath it or on top, depending on how you think about it, that accelerates a lot of these things. But ultimately, it is the life cycle of the contract, pre-sign, post-sign, making it easy to get to signature, making it easy to get through negotiations, and then making sure that your contracts are not black box in another sense where you just don't know what's there, but in fact, full of data, very accessible, alert driven, et
Mm.
cetera. So, and to foreshadow where we're going with this conversation today, I would say that those pain points haven't gone away. So if we talk about the death of CLM,
Mm.
Electra is the first to sort of raise her hand and say, well, wait a minute, we still need these things. It's still important that
Mm.
contracts move faster, that they're more
Yeah.
accessible. But the how is changing or has changed. And so the sort of nomenclature of CLM and what it represents from a technology perspective, I think we will posit today, is changing rapidly.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice way of putting it. It's not the individual items, the action items. All of those things are needed. The question is the how. How do we do it?
Yeah.
How does it get deployed? How is it shared out, and so forth. Okay, no, that's a good baseline. And actually, before we get further, just want to mention if you'd like to posit some questions, there's a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We won't be answering questions yet, but probably in about 20, 30 minutes or so we will. But if you have any thoughts, jot them down and we'll come back to you later. Right, let's press on. So we've defined what CLM is. Why is it dead or dying? Or, to put it sort of more nicely, why is it challenged? What's challenging it?
Well, first, I will say, how do we know it's dead or how do we know it's dying? And one of the
Mhm.
ways, or two of the ways I would say we know it, is that it's not being talked about. I don't hear you talking about it, Richard. I don't hear Bob Ambrosi talking about it. It's not in the press. There's not, big CLM investments occurring. And so that's sort of one way. And then the other very interesting way is that all the headlines are being captured by emerging legal tech companies that are
Mhm.
focused on AI first capabilities, whether it's AI repository capabilities or AI powered contract review. That is where all of the oxygen is going right now. And maybe quietly, the Lexions, or not the Lexion that was now DocuSign, but the Ironclads, et cetera, of the world are crushing it. But I think because the AI boom is happening for contract review, contract analysis, and the vendors that appear at least to be winning are not legacy CLMs, it sort of begs the question about whether or not CLM is dying just by virtue of that. Don't hear any innovation coming from the CLM companies. Like I was just,
Mhm.
this is gonna be very critical and very controversial perhaps, but I was just on the Ironclad website and I am sort of crazy about analyzing my competitors. And it just dawned on me that their website, their homepage hasn't changed in like a year and a half in the middle of the AI boom.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, what is happening to the incumbents that ought to have been in the perfect position to capitalize on this AI revolution? So that's what
Mhm.
I'll pass the
No,
mic.
absolutely fair point, fair point. I mean, I think that some of us, well, not all of them, but some of them. I mean, I think people like Agiloft. I mean, I didn't want to get too much into mentioning names, but I think I will mention it.
Sorry.
Like, so, but well, yeah, you've broken the ice. So, I mean, people like Agiloft and Contract Pod AI. I mean, I think I mean, this is the whole thing with defining CLM, isn't it? I mean, these guys are doing so much. I mean, like
Yeah,
Contract Pod AI just released this AI agent to help companies understand tariff risk
Yeah.
when tariffs
I
change,
saw that. I saw that.
which is very interesting. And you could say, well, that's not a CLM product. It's I don't know how you want to define it. But I mean, is it that some of the CLM companies are evolving and are as up to date as everybody else and others are not? I mean, is it more that some parts of the CLM market are not getting it and others are? Or do you really do think the whole thing is like
I mean,
Well, I think, oh, let me, Electra, just say one thing, I'll pass it to you. I think it's very difficult if you spent 5 years and $20 million investing in your own LLM only to be outdone by OpenAI and the competitors that are now building on top of it. I think it's very difficult to pivot out of that.
Right, so it's the tech debt, it's the archaeological background. They've put so much in. The CLM civilization is like ancient Greece or Rome, whatever. They had their way of doing things. It's a huge investment. It was very successful while it was there, or open to debate, etc. But they can't make that jump without ditching a whole bunch of things. I guess that's what you're gonna see. They're stuck in their ways. But well, we can debate this. And if you have questions or points to make, please put them in the chat box.
And Electra, sorry, I cut you off. I think you were jumping in on that.
Yeah, please go for it, Electra.
I was going to say that I think, you see, I think Luminance also released something tariff related.
Yeah, this morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
We're just
I think
naming, now we're just gonna name all the names now. That's
all the
just,
names, just
Yeah,
get them
let's
out.
just go. I'm just going to list every single legal tech company now. Right?
But this is the thing,
Mm,
right? This is what
mm,
CLM's done today that I think is the reason it hasn't been adopted as well as it should have, right? What
Mm,
CLM has tried to do is become the complete end-to-end operating system of an in-house
mm,
legal team.
mm,
And, and as a result, they didn't really focus as much on each feature and making that best in class, because you can't, right? You've got to focus on delivering something that's good enough for people to adopt on the promise that it's going to solve your back office. You know, you're
mm,
a legal ops director, you're buying the CLM, or you're the GC, and you know you want to automate your function. And so you buy CLM, and the hope is that you're going to automate every element. But when you're actually buying and making the decision, you don't feel the pain across all of the verticals, right? So you're like, right, I need something to store my contracts, or I need a legal front door, or I need something to help me automate my NDAs. So you look at that feature and you might buy based on the pain that you feel more acutely in that moment. But then
mm,
the reason you're paying an inflated price is because you think it's going to solve more problems for you as you scale into it. And actually, the reality is that you're not, because the
mm,
other parts of it maybe aren't as good as you thought, or they don't solve the specific problem that you have. And there's this bundling of CLM that has led to it being, with all due respect, mediocre across the board, and really, really hard and expensive and laborious to implement. And on that basis, I think that's why CLM is dying in its current form. But having said that, the problems that exist still exist. But are
mm.
there better ways to solve them in a world of AI?
Yeah, and I really like that. I mean, from my sort of market analysis sort of hat perspective, I find yeah. I mean, in some ways, CLM effectively existed and grew as it did because many of the legal tech companies were focused on the law firms because they found it easier to make, well, to put it very simply, they made it easier to make money from selling stuff to law firms. CLM to some degree had the in-house market to itself, and so naturally, nature abhors a vacuum, right? So that they spread out in all directions. But generative AI, because time to value is so fast, because you don't have to do training, you know, well, you can, but most of the in-house lawyers aren't going to get involved on that side of things. It's changed things because yeah, it has shaken up. It's like you can imagine like this great big plain in the Serengeti, in Tanzania or whatever, and there was like nothing there except CLMs grazing happily, and then suddenly there's like there's been an earthquake, part of the valley's collapsed, and a whole bunch of new creatures have come running in, like terracing around, you know, and yeah, it's shaken up the ecosystem. And I suppose this is the question, isn't it? Does the shaking of this ecosystem kill the incumbents, or do the incumbents evolve, or do they learn to accommodate, or do they drop certain things, start behaving differently? It's an interesting one, isn't it? So
Yeah,
can you know what I mean? It's like, and I think Electra's point that they were trying to do too much. Them is the answer that CLMs will live, they'll be fine, but they're just gonna have to focus more.
yeah, I know we're not supposed to look at questions, but I see Stefan had one that I think we were starting to answer a few minutes ago. But yeah, um software is universal in this respect, which is that when big innovations occur that impact whatever industry it may be, CRM or HRIS, that either it becomes a bolt-on to the incumbent, which is very elegant in a net win. So when Salesforce purchases Slack, you just be like, we got one of those now, and then everything keeps moving.
Mm,
But this is so existential and foundational,
mm, mm,
and it is so duplicative in many cases of legacy AI products and services that were homegrown, that I really think it creates an identity crisis for these businesses. And so I don't. I can make bold predictions about what I think will happen.
mm,
Um, and certainly I have bias there because
mm,
if what I think is going to happen happens, that is, it happens to be favorable to me. So I'm sure I do have bias there, but I think it'll be very difficult, as we've been saying, for the incumbents to catch up and to
mm,
to sort of course correct without
mm,
shedding a massive amount of technical debt and sort of
mm.
repositioning their go-to markets.
Well, okay, all right, let's segue into the next bit. So, what is the way forward? Who is going to win this? Is it, leaner, meaner, more agile, more focused, AI first type companies who are going to just get in there? Electra?
Yes, I mean, I think the short answer is yes. And obviously, just to Preston's point, you might think I'm saying that because I have bias, because I work for an AI first company that is doing just
That would
that.
be an outrageous thing to say. So,
Outrageous. But ultimately, it makes complete sense, right? Because
mm,
these CLMs were so hard to adopt and implement
mm,
and sell, right? So now you're getting these solutions like these word add-ins, like the one that we have, which we're seeing incredible product market fit for that I've never experienced in my whole career. I've never seen anything like it. The reason is, and I've been thinking about this a lot, how come this is just so easy for people to understand, get, and buy versus some other tools that I've helped sell and implement in the past? And the reason is that it's very simple. It works where you do. And it's just, by the way, this is not a pitch, right? I'm not, but I just want people to have an open mind when it comes to what I'm saying, because it's
mm,
such a revelation for me to see the difference between
mm,
something in legal tech that works and all the other stuff that don't. Because I was getting to the point where I was thinking, is legal even a good market to sell into? Will they ever get it? Will they ever get that tech is going to help them? Because let's face
mm,
it, if you do implement CLM correctly and you've got proper kind of integration with the rest of your systems and you do it right, it's incredibly transformative. But there's just so many barriers to getting there that it
mm,
became a path of just loads of PTSD for lawyers that were trying to buy it. And now you
mm,
get these lightweight solutions that are cheap, they're easy to plug into your existing
mm,
workflows. You fully understand what they're doing. It's not some sort of mysterious
mm,
workflow automation where you don't quite get it. It redlines your contracts the way you would, but instantly. And so you get it. And I think that if we can keep designing these really intuitive products that
mm,
don't expect this enormous adoption and change management journey that we
mm,
expect busy lawyers to undergo when they're buying technology, and getting other parts of the business to work where they do. Like who do legal think they are? Not in a I'm not
mm,
saying that in an offensive way. Like
mm,
not a central part of an organization. So it's going to be very hard to get
mm.
people who are working in Salesforce to now start working on Ironclad. And I
Yeah,
think
and well, no, absolutely. I mean, well, let's unpack that. There's so many good points there. I mean, first of all, I mean, why? Let's just, let's just illuminate one key point. Why were the first wave of CLM companies? Why were so many of those adoption projects not successful? I mean, it was because, I mean, I've heard various things that simply that, the in-house lawyers didn't use the templates that had been set up in the system, and they just kept on doing it the same way, that there were problems, analyzing all the past contracts, which just became an enormous nightmare, and they didn't even know what to do with the data when they'd analyzed it. And then you had like that first wave of natural language processing, machine learning, which was applied, which then needed training and lots of accuracy testing, which created another burden for people who were not tech first people who just wanted to be lawyers. I mean, I mean, is it, if we really boil this down, aside from the money thing, because of course some of the early CLM systems are expensive. I mean, I've heard
mhm,
like it's 1 million plus to get in
yeah.
there, right? Whereas we'll come to 1 million in a minute, but and also I think Preston, as you are, very much a techie guy as well, was it just simply that the technology created its own burden?
Yeah, I was gonna say, hearing Electra, it's like CLM just needed AI. Like it just wasn't viable without it, or it wasn't
Mm,
scalable without it. And so now we're here, which is this great next chapter. But I also think the burden of CLM is that unlike other categories like CRM or HRIS, where there's this like fast time to value or primary value proposition. For HRIS, it's payroll. For CRM, it's storing your customer and prospect data. Like there wasn't really a quintessential value point where someone could say, well, at least we're getting that. And you could argue that maybe it's repository, but if you were just going to use it for that, you would have just used Microsoft or Google for your repository. You didn't need to go spend a bunch of money. And so the integrated system level requirement to fulfill the promise of CLM. That was a mouthful, but it's like, it's not enough to, it was not historically enough to use any one piece of CLM and feel like you were getting massive value. You sort of had to do the whole thing.
Mm.
And that was so burdensome. And without AI, even more burdensome. I think that the promise was rarely fulfilled. As Electra said, when it was fulfilled, it was wonderful, but it
Mm.
was just too hard to get to.
And
And
expensive.
I think that AI unlocks it. It unlocks it at scale, but it also allows you to piecemeal your way there, which is sort of this unbundling topic I know we're going to talk about later.
Well, okay, let's get into that now. We've got a whole bunch of questions coming through. Guys, if you could actually stick it in the Q&A, that'd be helpful. Chat is fine as well, but if you want to put stuff into the Q&A box, that'd be awesome as well. We'll come to that in about 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so what is the answer? So we've discussed many of the challenges. What is the answer? What does a good contract management system with AI and so forth available for an in-house legal team in 2025? What does that look like?
Preston, do you want to take?
Future, future of CLM. Um,
I mean,
I think that
if you could build any if you like if you're a GC and you've got you as Electra said right at the beginning, it's not that the issues have gone away; they're all still there.
yeah,
So
I
if you
think
could build the perfect system today, what would it look
yeah,
like?
yes. So of course it's agentic,
Hmm.
and it's you have sort of unbundled categories that the buyer, legal ops, etc., can crawl, walk, run into. And the categories are contract review, drafting, AI repository, workflow automation, and then some sort of wrapper of insights, legal front door, sort of the point through which either the legal team or business team is accessing all of this. And the idea that you can unbundle these and provide massive value, very efficient value, at a reasonable price in large part because the individual CLM or whatever we call them in the future vendors don't have to invest 20 million in the development of their own LLM.
Mm.
And because they're going to unbundle, which means lower price point, easier time to value or faster time to value, easier implementation. I think it turns the whole like very bulky enterprise only, like multiple, like 1,000 seats at a time. Like I think it unbundles it and allows you to go to market in a way that is saying, what is the biggest pressing problem you have right now? Let's go solve
Mhm.
it. And don't worry, this is not a standalone point solution. It integrates with an entire ecosystem that you can crawl, expand your way into when you're ready. And
Mhm.
I think if people are like, that's BS because that could have happened before too, I challenge it because I don't think without AI, the tools were sufficiently good enough to stand on
Mhm.
our own in that way. And folks may disagree. I think that there's been plenty of good repository vendors out there. I just think it's so much better now that you can actually make those buying decisions discreetly and feel much better about the value you're going to get from it.
Mm. I mean, you could argue that what you've just described is simply a CLM, but a new CLM. It's just simply if you were going to create a CLM tomorrow and you had some investment and some staff and a couple of good tech guys, that would be it. You've just described a new CLM. So it's not really that CLM is dead. It's just simply that the old model, the old technology, the heaviness of it all was the problem. But
Yeah, well, and I guess that's where we started. We said that the
yeah.
problems, the jobs to be done haven't changed. The approach
Mm.
has changed. And so do we come up with a clever, um, you know, DocuSign-esque name, sorry, I'm saying names again,
Mm.
for CLM, and so we rename it,
Mm.
or do we keep it the same name? And I don't care about the name nomenclature to be clear, but to be responsive to your question, jobs
Mm.
to be done have changed or are the
Mm.
same, but how we get there is different. How you implement it is different. How you pay for it is different. How you use it is different. And so maybe a better question is, should we rename it? But certainly we're going to sell it differently, and certainly it's going to be purchased differently. And so I
Mm.
think the end result is it will feel almost like a new software category rather than people walking in feeling that sort of all of those battle scars of three failed
Mm,
CLMs. I don't think like when Electra and I are selling AI powered contract tools now, that pain is not coming with it. They're not bringing those battle scars into these evaluations. They're treating it like new tech that is solving a new problem for them because it's so different from what they were used
mm,
to. So my hope is that that sort of newness prevails so that we're
mm,
able to, add on new, point solutions that connect together
mm.
without feeling the same burden of, gosh, we're doing a massive 12-month project. I think that that's hopefully that's going away.
I know, I see what you're saying. But I mean, even with the LLMs, which could massively reduce price because, you've got this incredibly powerful, productive efficiency tool that you just literally just plug into and off you go. And I think that is going to have a massive impact and already has. But isn't it a lot of a work? You just can't get around it. So like, let's say, I don't know, you're some large Fortune 500 company, you've got 25 million historic contracts. Somebody's got to ingest them, or you decide not to ingest them, but then you have to decide which ones to keep and which ones not. If you're going to create contract templates, you can't AI that. Somebody has to sit down and
Yeah.
decide, right, so what does a good template look like? And how many do we need? Do we need 25 NDAs? Do we just need one? Do we need, Electra, you can comment on that. But I mean, it's, but I guess the key question is that, so even if we get to like a nice kind of steady state, LLM driven, it's super light touch, is way more affordable, it's much faster time to value, but isn't there like a whole shed load of legwork that you still got to do, or can that be jumped over?
I mean, I think that so initially with buying CLM, just to Preston's point, the time to
Mm,
value is so long, right? So I
mm,
think, and I think that hurt CLM as a category because it just took too long for people to see a difference and they
mm,
lost faith. Their CFO was annoyed at them. The rest of the business was like, why did you do all this training? And now we're not even using this thing. So these
mm,
things hurt adoption and change. Whereas if you've got something that's lightweight and it's delivering value in week one, then that gives people faith and motivation to do some of the heavy lifting that they previously didn't necessarily feel motivated to do because they
mm,
weren't seeing the gains. And
mm,
so that's really important and not to be underestimated in that these tools can give you time to value really, really quickly,
mm,
which gives you impetus and also helps you build a business case for further work. The other
mm,
thing is that whereas before, because I've done a repository implementation, what we used to do is ingest all the contracts and then we'd have to train it. So we'd have to tag the fields and then tell it when it was wrong
yeah.
and then go back and correct it. And then even if I'd throw like 10 paralegals at it and still
Mm,
we'd get it wrong. And then they'd blame the CLM or they'd blame the data set wasn't clean. Whereas now with AI, you don't have to do that heavy lift. Today's AI
mm,
can actually do that sorting for you with a couple of prompts that you might write. And the AI repositories of the future, or even of today, are going to be so much more advanced that you're not going to have that. You're not going to have to make decisions that you then have to execute on because the AI will execute for you. When it
mm,
comes to NDAs, obviously you only need one NDA, but also you can just ask the AI to amalgamate all your NDAs and create one version for you. So I
mm,
think, again, on what we were saying earlier, CLM didn't succeed for many reasons. One of them was that it wasn't customer centric enough in terms of seeking that time to value, understanding how hard it is to implement these things and try and make it a bit easier from a time to value perspective, but also the technology just was not available. And to get it to the level that it is today, it would have taken millions and millions that,
mm.
no one had the appetite or funding for. Whereas now the possibilities are so much bigger.
Yeah, no, I like that. I suppose it's like the thin end of a wedge, but flipped around. So you could you imagine like a wedge to hold open the door. Thick with traditional CLM, the thick bit came first. You had to do all the heavy lifting, literally in some cases, literally physical heavy lifting, lifting the boxes out of the archives, scanning it, going through. Now it's completely flipped round. Now it's an extremely thin end, and you just go bang. So immediately you've got some value. So like,
Mhm.
hey, like this is basically my playbook. Can you review that contract? Bing. Is it perfect? No. But can you get value in about 35 seconds? Yes. Try doing that the old way. just couldn't do it, could you? So it's a very, very interesting point. All right, so moving forward then, let's just that's a bit of futurology. So, I mean, Electra, you mentioned democracy and democratization. I thought it was really interesting. So, how does this connect to democratization?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll let Preston talk about the economics of it, but
Mm,
we have an enormous distribution advantage that allows us to disseminate the law inside a word add-in, which is a very lightweight solution that will give you value in 35 seconds, as you said, Richard.
mm,
But
mm,
the fact that we have 11,000 existing customers that are already on our subscription, that have now been upgraded so that they have access to that word add-in, and that subscription starts at $29 or $59 for a team, which is
mm,
much more competitive. You know, if you compare it to our immediate competitors who
mm,
start at $499,
mm,
$490 a month.
mm,
Because we have this distribution advantage, we are able to get AI in the hands of the masses. Whereas up until now, and I've used this analogy before, the legal tech market felt very much like the wedding market. You can get the same cake from M&S for 25 quid, or you can pay $500 because it's a
mm,
wedding cake, right? And that's what legal tech has been today. And, you know, if you look at the fact that these companies do need the investment, they need to pay lots of money to acquire customers that we have immediate access to, their price tag is justified, but it doesn't necessarily justify the value that the customer's getting. Not to underestimate the value that they're getting, but a word
mm,
add-in at $500 doesn't feel as compelling as a word add-in for $59. And the fact that we have
mm.
that opportunity allows us to democratize AI for the masses, which is just an incredible advantage.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, do you find that it's companies that have no legal team, or it's companies that have a tiny legal team, or it's companies who have a very large legal team, went through CLM Mark One and now want something different? I mean, who are the groups that are most sort of interested in this change?
I'll jump in on that. It's I think it was maybe the wordsmith announcement. Um, what we have found, which I think the adjacent vendors that are going to market capturing this AI wave. So I can't speak for the legacy CLM vendors, but I think what I've seen from the new emerging vendors is that there is a global market for these products that can be served by the same software, the same technology, which is always hard to do sort of pre-AI because there was a lot of localization required and just a lot of requirements. So you couldn't just
Mm,
go from Dubai to Spain, to Canada with a similar platform, and that's proving to be the case. And so I would just say that the notion of democratization through the lens of a vendor like us is that the personas that we're going after and the types of law firms or solos or in-house teams that we're able to service sort of exceed our expectations. Now, we have to be disciplined where it's not one size fits all. Not every use case is the same. Not everyone wants a playbook. Not everyone wants every feature. And so there has to be some saying no and some pushback and who are we building for, et cetera. But I think I have been, candidly shocked at the use the acronym TAM, the total addressable market for these AI tools. And I think that the buying that we're seeing just spans this just incredible spectrum. Um, maybe CLM was like that too, but this just feels bigger, and maybe it feels bigger because it's greenfield, and so you have a lot of first time buyers, and maybe that will level off. But right now, it feels enormous.
yeah, 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 yeah. But just to clarify that, I mean, is there any particular group that is going more for the new AI solutions, the new LLM-based solutions than others, or is it just literally everybody? I mean, is it kind of like very small businesses who are just like, we don't even have a legal function. This is affordable. It's good. I mean, is there any
Well, let
particular
me
group?
let me speak to a few points of value.
Yeah.
So Solo, who has a part-time paralegal tests the tool and they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to save me a massive amount of time. In-house team with 15 people. We just finished an implementation yesterday. 15 lawyers. They on average review 100 contracts a month. They're using the tool for 100% of their evaluations, and we'll see over some months how much time in aggregate we've saved them. And then you have a large manufacturing company in the Middle East, in-house team of 7 people. It's sort of like I colleges and universities, in-house teams, general counsel's offices. So like I love being able to say we're going after the private market. We see an M&A use case. It's doing this, this, and this, and maybe we will add that layer of market segmentation as we go along. But right now, it's amazing how a single product is able to serve. So I don't have a good answer.
So you're basically saying it's a bit of everybody. Okay, well let's do some questions. Let's get into some questions. There's one from Mike Whelan.
Oh, can't answer a Mike question. Are we
Right.
gonna start with a
Um,
Mike Whalen question?
doesn't he work for you? Doesn't he work for you?
Yeah, is he saying
Anyway,
something bad about me on there? No, go ahead. Sorry.
it's he doesn't like your hoodie apparently.
I
No,
believe
no, sorry,
that. I
I'm sorry.
believe it.
No, it's well, I'm gonna change his question because it made me think of something else. He's talking about legal ops and how legal ops for a long time was very closely connected with implementing CLM v1. What happens to legal ops? I mean, legal ops became this big thing, and I must admit, I don't know about you, but I kind of felt that the energy out of legal ops has kind of faded a little bit. I don't know if these two things actually, perhaps in the background, are connected somehow. No one's actually talked about that, but I mean, now that Mike talks about it, it's very interesting. So, I mean, do you think that legal ops will change as, your vision of contract management and so forth develops? That you don't need all these people hanging around like trying to refine things and, you just
I mean, I think legal ops 2.0 is coming, and legal ops will be the architect of what the legal team does. I think up until now, legal ops has been quite reactive. It had to be, it had to fix issues, but now they get to design what the system is that's going to scale legal as a whole. And I see a future where legal ops will be the ones that kind of coordinating, well, what's our risk appetite? Let's document that, and then let's feed that to an AI system in the form of a playbook, so that then that playbook can scale what the lawyers are doing based on their institutional and systemic knowledge and gut feel, right? Because if you're a senior lawyer, you can review a contract in 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, depending on the length of it, and you have an instinct as to what's right, what's wrong. You can draft it, redraft it to suit your risk appetite. But if you've never documented that, then you cannot scale it. Whereas if you document that and allow an AI system to do it for you, then all of a sudden, instead of 2 hours, doing it in 3 minutes or 30 seconds, and that's that. And I think the legal ops function will be responsible for doing more of a BA, a business analyst role, where they take all this systemic knowledge out of the heads of lawyers, turn it into an AI prompt effectively, and then put it into an AI system so that they can scale the team. And I see that happening already. So this is not what's going to happen in 2 years. It's happening now.
Interesting. Yeah, so they basically become agents for the agents.
Yes.
But there's a really nice question here from Richard Gutman. He was mentioning the comments recently from Microsoft's CEO, who was basically, it was kind of slightly misinterpreted, but the general gist is that with agents, you effectively don't need SaaS companies to operate the way they do. In fact, we don't need to engage with SaaS companies in that kind of very, very siloed way. And that there's a parallel here with CLM v1 and what's happening now with AI and agents in legal tech. I don't know. Is this idea of like it's very, very light touch, very powerful agents, for example, which are just thrown at problems, thrown at data, thrown at contracts and so forth? For example, like, we've seen, like today, the Luminance, and then earlier this week, ContractPod AI, and then before that, Pramata with these tariff agents. I mean, is that the way we're going to go? It's not, you don't need this gigantic kind of battleship. You're just going to throw a bunch of specially designed agents, which are very nimble at all of this data. And that could disrupt even some of the new people.
Yeah, so my bias again is I don't think that enterprise software is dead. I think that it will be reborn with sort of AI at the center, and those who catch up to it will win, or those who emerge with it at the core will win, and those that sort of lag behind will not. Um,
But do you need it? I mean, if you've
Yes.
got the
So
data,
I
why do
think
you
that
need
I
all
think that
this?
you need dashboards, you need storage, you need configuration, you need customer success, you need SLAs. Like I think it may have a new form, but I think you need accountability. I think, there are aspects of the enterprise relationship that I think persist through this. The idea that there's just this lightweight agent moving around, doing deep research, doing everyone's job without a lot of inputs.
Mm,
I think that, to Electra's comment on the role of legal ops, I think
mm,
that she's exactly right. And I think that the fine tuning and the exacting level of the work, because now your work is magnified. And so even more precision is required. And assuming that the AI can create precision without knowing what you want. What are your rules? What do you care about? Who must this go to before it goes to this person, before it gets the signature? And then what's the renewal date? It might be faster than it was before, but I think
mm,
that the inputs still matter. And I think surfacing the results of
mm,
all of those inputs in a
mm,
way that is actionable, that is demonstrating ROI, still
mm,
allows and requires an enterprise layer. And again, I have tremendous bias there.
mm.
If I am wrong, then I will be out of a job, and
We'll see.
that may be true. Yeah.
But I mean, there's another good question that actually segues nicely to this from Stefan Braun, who asks the question about, okay, CLM, AI, blah, 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 very nice. But at the end of the day, you've got to have absolute truth. You've got to have, a point of truth. And I'm adding a little bit of my own here, generative AI is known for not being perfectly accurate, right? And the early machine learning systems weren't perfectly accurate either, and also an enormous pain to train. But it goes back to, there are some things you just can't avoid. Don't you still have to put a lot of legwork in to get that, level of truth?
Um, the short answer is no. So humans aren't 100% accurate either. And I think we seem to forget that when
Mm,
we're slating AI for not being accurate. We just
mm,
should remember that. But the fact is that even if you get 80% of the way there with an AI tool or 90% there in 30 seconds versus 95% there in 2 hours, the cost benefit ratio is something that needs to be taken into consideration, right? Because
mm,
this is not just about 100% precision. And I'm just going to focus on the in-house audience for a minute, because your business isn't necessarily as invested as you are in having 100% accuracy all the time. That's not to say that AI tools are not going to become 100% accurate in the very near future. I think that they are, and we're seeing the AI models, the newer AI models, just they're so much better every time. It's exponentially better. And I don't think that that's going to be a problem for much longer. But
mm,
even today, with that 95% accuracy, and you having to maybe do the legwork for the last 5% to polish it, the benefit of that to the business,
mm,
not just you as a lawyer with your academic background and risk appetite, the benefit to the business is huge, because it means that you can move deals much quicker. It means that there's an immediate impact to your business's bottom line. So
mm,
you want to be pursuing that in your role as a commercial enabler, which is what a
mm,
lawyer should be focusing on in terms of kind of the value that they're adding. Because our job isn't to annihilate every single possible risk. And of course, you want to be able to rely on AI as being accurate. But even where
mm,
we are today, the efficiency gains are enormous, and
mm.
therefore commercial gains are also huge.
Well, okay, that nicely connects to another question from Ian McNair, who says he's a client of a CLM system and he uses it for a whole ton of things: contracts, process management, redlining, analysis, CRM, ERM, blah, 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 blah. And the question really is that, okay, well, look, it sounds like Ian has actually made this work for his business. Why try and replace that? If they're happy with it, if they're getting value.
Yeah, so let me jump in. As someone else made the comment too, they're like, I wish someone on this panel was pro CLM. And I'm like, I don't know if we're anti CLM because we still believe in the jobs to be done. And
Mm,
so if your jobs to be done are being efficiently accomplished through the tool you have, then like, like you're good. I don't think you're missing I don't think that you'll have to go through that level of pain again to get there, assuming that there was some pain to get to the place you are now. But I
mm,
certainly wouldn't undo it just so you can have a faster path to get to the same place you are now. There may be
mm,
some magic that you're missing, but it may not be worth undoing what you have done. So I'm not being critical, nor do I
mm.
think is Electra of successful implementations. And it's like, oh, you're on old tech now. It's like, no, if it's working like good on you. It's just for so many it's not, and for so many sort of the results are underwhelming. And I think that's the point that we're challenging.
Yep. No, no, fair enough, fair enough. I suppose actually, I mean, just a question from my side is just, I was just thinking that, I mean, we've seen this with the big two, Lexis and Thomson Reuters, who have go through sort of like various phases of being really, really, at the front of legal tech innovation and development, and then kind of become a little bit comfortable. And then suddenly there's a new wave of technology and they catch up. This time around, of course, Thomson Reuters was very, very fast buying case text, and Lexis has bought Henchman. There's been a ton of investment. They're really going for it. And I just wonder if will we see the same with some of the larger CLMs, or maybe even the smaller ones that are perhaps more nimble, and they just say, okay, right, maybe Preston and Electra are right. Maybe they're right. Okay, let's just face facts, but we're not going away. We're just thank you for all the tips. We're gonna revolutionize ourselves. We're gonna dump the things that don't
They
work. We're gonna,
should.
you
They
know.
should, and they
Yes,
might.
should.
We're
Mm,
seeing those acquisitions now with Agiloft and others, and maybe that prevails. And I'm not saying that like
mm,
flippantly, like I don't think it'll happen. Like it legit could happen. I just think it's knowing what I know about B2B go to market, acquisitions mostly fail or don't perform, mostly don't perform the way you need them to.
mm,
Difficult to sell a new product, especially if your sales and business organization is used to selling something that is more expensive and now they need to sell something less expensive in a crowded
mm.
market where most of the vendors are selling less than you. And the bet is that your incumbency will allow you to distribute this. And in some cases it works, but I think because this product is so lightweight and because that is a juxtaposition against how CLM has been packaged and sold in the past, it's uniquely difficult for them to move that type of product, even if they've acquired one.
So yeah, it could be an economics issue that that you literally might have to be selling at like 20% or 10% of what your old list price was. So it's the yeah, indeed. There's an interesting question here from Leslie Daly, who says that she works more on the procurement side, which I thought was nice, and she was just like asking about that aspect of it, that it's not all about the legal team.
Yeah, it's totally not. And I loved that comment from Leslie because it just shows that there's another layer to the complexity of CLM in that it's not just legal, it affects other teams. And often when I've implemented CLM in the past, I was implementing on behalf of procurement and it wasn't legal was like hardly involved. They were just a remote stakeholder. So I think that there are a lot of teams that benefit from good contract management, and that's to an extent another threat to CLM or to legacy CLM as other tools come and solve problems for specific teams that have more motivation to drive these tools forward. So yeah, that's just another layer of complexity.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's always surprised me is why someone like Salesforce or someone else who's really deeply embedded on the enterprise side doesn't just say, "Look, guys, I don't know why you don't do it just this way and just roll it out themselves." You know.
Yeah, I think Aaron Levy at Box is pretty close. I think every time he posts a video on LinkedIn, I'm like, he's getting closer. Like I know his
Mhm,
wife's a lawyer. Like I feel like deep in his bones, he really
mhm,
wants to win the CLM market, at least the repository side and maybe workflow and
mhm.
e-sign side. Um, and
Because the thing
then
is, like,
there's a
you saw the Microsoft thing with them trying to, create use agents to create contracts, and everyone said these are terrible contracts,
yeah,
and
yeah, not a real contract. Yeah, yeah.
but it's the first stab, and the Wright brothers had to start somewhere, and then yesterday I did that news about Perplexity and LegalZoom getting together, which I think is
Hmm.
really interesting as well. So, like, can big tech, if you want to use it pretty simply, can they solve this problem? They're already in there, as you were saying, enterprise is good. So
I
they're
think
there.
that they'll be really good at solving the repository problem unless,
Mm,
and maybe they will workflow too. So maybe. I think it's really difficult for big tech though to get into. I think lawyers want um, tools that are built for them. I'm not going to do the built by lawyers for lawyers mantra. I don't think that that's true anymore. But I think it's really difficult, to be like, oh, Google Docs is now my CLM. Yeah, you can do it. You can make it work.
mm,
But I think that you still need the enterprise relationship, and that's my bias. So I think that it's difficult for the big companies to
mm,
serve to come because they have to really bend down. This TAM is not big enough. There's not enough billions in this
That's
market. Like it's just not interesting to them. It
mm.
is in the margins if they can just add a couple of widgets, but I don't think there's enough money here for them, candidly.
Actually, it's interesting because Leslie Daly adds Salesforce is too expensive and inflexible to do this. And then Ed Wilson adds Salesforce actually does already have a type of CLM system.
Right. There you go.
Interesting. Did not know that. But of course, DocuSign is another interesting example, isn't it? Starting off with signature, then they bought a CLM system a while ago, and then they bought another CLM system. Was it last year, the year before? Yeah, I mean, it is the reality that all of these different systems are still fighting it out. That there is we haven't reached anything close to market saturation, despite so many companies. I mean, we're
Yeah, and
still
it's not
talking
winner
about
and it's not winner take all. It's
yeah, we're in
it's
about like
fascinating.
10% market penetration still. I mean, how many corporates are there on the planet that could possibly use a contract management system? Like tens of millions?
Yeah.
I don't know. Must be, right? Even in the US, there must be tens of millions of companies, right? How many individual companies are there? I have no idea. Vast, 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 vast. So I mean, if you kind of think about like, the penetration that say something like, I don't know, Microsoft Word has, right? And then you think about how, which is enormous, billions upon billions of users. And then you think about all the hundreds of millions of corporates all around the world. I mean, you say, how many of you actually have any kind of meaningful legal tech system to handle contracts and so forth? It'd probably be like, eep, that much.
mhm.
Yeah, so there's another spin on the story, which is that the AI tools, the point solutions that Electra and I are talking about, are actually expanding the, I guess it's not TAM, it's SAM, it's serviceable market. So you could say technically all of these thousands of companies could be buyers, but they weren't. And
Mm,
and now with the AI tools and the magic and the marketing engine that is OpenAI and others, they're now leaning into it, and that becomes a gateway into these other problems for which they just weren't buying software to solve in the past. I think that could be sort of an interesting outcome.
Actually, there's a little comment here from Usman Wahid who says, I see a world where the number of contract legal tech providers is fragmented, which, yep. But is that a similar pattern to the legal market? And it's true, isn't it? I mean, there are reasons why there are so many law firms, one of which is conflicts, particularly in the US, very strict conflict rules. But it is kind of, to someone who doesn't know the legal market and they say, like, what, there's not a single law firm that even has 1% of the market. Are you kidding me? And like, yep, it's completely fragmented.
So I say no. I think that the parallel that I use to make that argument is payroll. I think that there are thousands of payroll providers around the country in the U.S. at least, and it may be the same outside. ADP, Workday, they rule. They buy these payroll companies as they go. But the reason that so many exist is because it's a very heavy services business. And so you have a good relationship with an accountant or CPA, they sell you a payroll system and then they get bought by ADP and then you get sucked up. But this is not that way. So I don't think that the market can support nor wants to support nor needs to support 1,000 AI powered contract review tools. We may have that many now, but I don't think that that's long term sustainable.
Well, let's go the other way. Let's go the other way. I mean, I mean, basically, Microsoft Word controls word processing, right? There's two or three other options which most people don't really use. Are we ever going to get? I mean, because contracts are so central, not just for legal world, procurement, everything, everybody, right? Every employee has a contract. Every freelancer has a contract, right? Every sale, every invoice, to some degree, is connected to a contract, right? Will we ever have like maybe just one or two or three who just dominate everything? Is that even possible? Could we have like in Microsoft Word equivalent? And then, all of this is just academic because in 10 years we'll just be saying, well, yeah, that's done now. It's just Preston and Electra own
Won the
like
whole thing.
you
No,
both have
I'd
your own
love it.
spaceships and like
Yeah,
you live on
I don't
Mars
even want to
now.
win I don't even want to win the whole thing, but I don't think it's possible. I think that there has to be some very unique market characteristics like an Uber, or legal research. I think that they're like
Well, that's a
monopolies.
great example. Taxi companies and then Uber, right? Everyone thought Uber was going to fail. It started in San Francisco, had a tiny, tiny, tiny market, and then just something happened and it just went.
Well,
"Hmm."
the nature of the network effects draw it into a winner take all, and there's just not network effects in a product like this, and so fragmentation is, I think, the default, especially because of how democratized or how relatively easy it is to build one of these businesses. Yeah, Electra may disagree, but I don't think it'll be winner take all ever.
I don't think so either. And I think, lawyers own contracts, maybe procurement as well to some extent, but lawyers own contracts. And I think that just the fragmentation in terms of who owns what, it's not like everyone who owns invoices also has a level of control over the contracts. It's just two very different buyers. So that's another reason why I don't think it would just seamlessly go, I'm selling you this and now also have this as well, because that
Mm.
other thing belongs to a completely different bunch of people that are very specific in the way that they buy, and they are very concerned about trust. And not to say that other teams are, but lawyers are particularly, they're particular buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. And just coming to the end of it, he's got an interesting question which points us to the final question, which is going to be about the future. But this is kind of more immediate. So it's basically the question is, legal tech, AI, etc., racing ahead. We don't know where it's going. Should buyers just wait? Should they just hang on for a little bit before they make any more decisions?
You should evaluate now.
Mm,
You may decide not to buy now. I think that, we among others are changing very quickly, and but I think that the products are all incredibly good right now, not just ours. So this isn't just a, hey, buy ours, we're ready. Like, I think you evaluate 10 vendors, I think you will be impressed with 10 vendors. Doesn't
mm,
mean that it's a business case to
mm.
make all the change now, but
Yeah.
I think you should
I,
evaluate.
I I agree. I mean, I think if this had been like the week before ChatGPT was released, I would have said, yeah, wait a little bit. But I think to some degree, LLMs are out there. The tools connected to those LLMs are out there. You might as well just get into it now. So to wrap up, bring out our crystal balls. Electra and Preston, I'll ask Electra first. So where do you see us heading? So we've just explored a whole bunch of different issues. Where are we, at least on the in-house side, where are we heading?
I think we're heading towards a world where the contract problem finally starts to get fixed. I think it's been
Mhm.
an enormous problem for so many decades, and it was just getting worse and worse. But now I think we're going to get to a point where we're fixing the problems at a fundamental root level, and we're going to see a lot of automation to the extent that lawyers get a different place at the table, which I think is the really interesting part. The role of lawyers is going to change as a result of this AI movement, and we're going to have a more driving role when it comes to the way that we engage with our businesses.
So the routine work will go away as everyone hopes, and then those other people involved in the legal side will elevate up. They'll be able to do more, or if they're already at a higher level, they'll be able to just do more of that.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Preston, you get the last word.
Fun. We're heading to fun. We get off these calls, we get off implementations. It's not just the magic in the first moment you see it. We're talking to teams that are 2, 3 months post launch, and they are like, this has changed the way I work. And that didn't exist before, certainly not for the legal profession. And so to be in the middle of that now, I actually think there's going to be some growing pains for all of us, some
Mm,
learning curves. We can all pretend, oh, you don't have to learn anything. It's super intuitive. There's going to be some learning.
mm.
But I think that we're going to be doing better work. We're going to be doing faster work. And I think we're going to enjoy the work that we're doing. Because I think if we all imagine going back in time and taking away key things from our desk, whether it's our phone or our laptop or the microphone that we're using, we're sort of like, I don't want to go back there. I don't think you're going to want to go back. And I think that that's really fun. It's certainly fun to be building and selling that. And I think it's also fun for the people who are adopting it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Preston. Thanks, Electra. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for all your very interesting questions, which has stimulated a great conversation. Obviously, if you want to reach out to Electra and Preston, they'd be very happy to hear from you and answer your questions. But that's all we have time for today. And see you at the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Richard.
Bye.